The desert wind cut like a blade through Red Canyon as Jack Callahan rode alone beneath a fading sun. The land was unforgiving, painted in blood-red stone and endless sand, a place where men disappeared and secrets were buried by time. Jack had traveled this stretch 100 times before, but something felt different that evening. His horse suddenly slowed, ears twitching, and that was when Jack saw her, small, unmoving, half hidden near the rocks, as if the canyon itself had tried to swallow her. At first he thought she was dead. He dismounted carefully, boots crunching against gravel, his hand resting near his revolver out of habit. The child's clothes were torn and dusty, stitched in a style he recognized instantly. Apache. Her dark hair clung to her face, and her lips were cracked from thirst. When Jack reached out, her eyes flew open, sharp, wild, filled with terror. She scrambled back, clutching a small beaded necklace as though it were the only thing keeping her alive. She said nothing, not a word. Jack offered his canteen. After a long moment she drank, her hands shaking. He noticed the bruises on her arms, the exhaustion carved into her small body. She pointed toward the distant mountains, where a thin trail of smoke still curled into the sky. Jack didn't need to ask what had happened there. He had seen burned villages before. He had heard the screams that never truly faded. Helping her would make him an enemy to his own kind, but leaving her would make him something worse. Jack wrapped his coat around her shoulders and lifted her onto his horse. She resisted at first, fear tightening her muscles, but she was too weak to fight for long. As they rode, the girl leaned against him, her breathing shallow yet steady, as if she had finally surrendered to survival. At his small ranch on the edge of nowhere, Jack tended her wounds and gave her food. She watched him closely, never speaking, never sleeping deeply. In the nights that followed, she cried softly, whispering words he didn't understand, mourning a world that no longer existed. Days turned into weeks. The girl stayed. Jack named her Ayanna because she survived when she should not have, and because something about her felt enduring, unbreakable. Though she never spoke of her past, the fire in her eyes told him this child carried more than grief. She carried a story, written in blood, loss, and destiny. And as Jack looked at her one quiet evening, he realized this wasn't just an act of mercy. Years slipped by as quietly as dust drifting across the plains, and the small Apache girl Jack Callahan once carried from Red Canyon was a child no longer. Ayanna grew into a young woman shaped by two worlds, her movements graceful and deliberate, her presence impossible to ignore. She worked beside Jack from sunrise to dusk, riding horses with effortless skill, repairing fences, and handling a rifle with a calm precision that unsettled more than one passing rancher. Though she spoke English fluently now, there were moments when her gaze drifted toward the horizon, as if listening to voices only she could hear. The nearby town never fully accepted her. Eyes followed her wherever she went, whispers crawling behind her footsteps. Jack stood between her and the world like a weathered shield, his reputation enough to keep most trouble away. Still, Ayanna felt the distance. At night, when the ranch grew quiet, she sat outside and sang low Apache melodies beneath the stars, her voice carrying sorrow and strength in equal measure. Jack never asked about the songs. He only listened. The truth came riding in on a cloud of dust one late afternoon. A group of Apache riders appeared near the ranch, moving slowly, openly, without threat. Jack's hand hovered near his gun as Ayanna stepped forward, her heart pounding with recognition she couldn't explain. An elder dismounted and stared at her as though seeing a ghost. His eyes fell to the beaded necklace she still wore, the same one Jack had found clutched in her small fists years ago. The old man spoke her true name. The sound of it struck her like lightning. He told her of Naya, the fearless widow who had led her people after her husband's death, a woman of rare beauty and iron will. Naya had fallen defending her village when soldiers attacked, and her daughter had vanished in the chaos. They had searched for her for years, believing her spirit had been claimed by the desert. Ayanna felt the ground shift beneath her. Memories returned in fragments, fire screaming, her mother's arms pushing her away toward the canyon, a command to run and never look back. Jack listened in silence as the past rose between them, realizing for the first time that the child he saved was never meant for a quiet ranch life. That night, Ayanna confronted him, Tears burned her eyes as she spoke of blood, heritage, and a destiny she could no longer deny. Jack wanted to beg her to stay, to remind her of the life they had built together. But he saw the truth in her face. She was not just his daughter by chance. She was the daughter of a legend, and the world was coming to claim her. The truth changed everything. Once word spread that the Apache widow's daughter lived openly on Jack Callahan's land. The air around the ranch grew tense and dangerous. Riders passed more often on the distant trails, some watching with curiosity, others with open hostility. Soldiers came asking careful questions, pretending it was routine. But Ayanna could feel the threat beneath their polite voices. She no longer moved through the days as a hidden child of the desert, but as a woman standing in the path of forces far larger than herself. The Apache returned, not as strangers this time, but as family. They spoke to her with respect, their eyes filled with hope and expectation. They reminded her of her mother's strength, her courage, her sacrifice. Ayanna listened. Torn between the life she had known and the blood that called to her, Jack watched from a distance, knowing the decision could not be his, yet fearing the moment she would ride away for good. That moment came sooner than he expected. Gunfire shattered the dawn when soldiers attacked an Apache camp near the canyon, claiming it was an act of protection. Ayanna didn't hesitate. She saddled her horse and rode hard toward the smoke, Jack close behind despite her protests. The fight was chaos, dust, shouting, and fear, but Ayanna moved with clarity. She used the skills Jack had taught her, not to destroy but to protect, guiding women and children to safety, standing her ground when panic threatened to turn into bloodshed. When the guns finally fell silent, it was Ayanna who stepped forward to speak. She faced the soldiers and her people alike, her voice steady, her presence commanding. She named herself as Naya's daughter and refused to be erased or used as an excuse for more violence. Her courage halted what weapons could not. The soldiers withdrew, wary of the consequences, and the Apache looked at her not as a lost child, but as a leader reborn. In the quiet that followed, Ayanna made her choice. She would honor her mother's legacy and stand with her people, but she would not abandon the man who had saved her life. Jack did not lose a daughter that day. He gained something deeper, a place beside a woman forged by love, loss, and purpose. As the sun sank behind Red Canyon, a new legend took root on the frontier, the cowboy who followed his heart, and the Apache widow's daughter who carried two worlds within her and refused to surrender either. Peace did not arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, like light at dawn, uncertain and fragile. After the soldiers withdrew, the land remained restless, as though the desert itself was waiting to see what Ayanna would become. She moved between the Apache camp and Jack's ranch, no longer hiding who she was. Wherever she went, people watched her closely. Some saw hope, others saw danger, but no one could deny her presence carried weight. Ayanna began to speak for her people, not with threats but with clarity. She met with elders beneath open skies and listened more than she talked, earning respect through patience rather than force. The stories of her mother surfaced again, how Naya had once calmed warring clans with nothing but her words, how her beauty was matched only by her resolve. Each story felt like a mirror Ayanna had never known existed. Reflecting parts of herself she was only beginning to understand. Jack stayed close, though he often felt out of place among the Apache. Still they accepted him, not as one of them, but as the man who had protected Naya's blood when the world had tried to erase it. Around evening fires he listened as Ayanna spoke in her native tongue, her voice steady and confident. In those moments, he saw her not as the frightened child from Red Canyon, but as a woman stepping fully into her own shadow. Trouble tested her soon enough. A group of settlers arrived demanding land near the canyon, backed by hired guns and empty promises. Fear spread quickly, and some urged Ayanna to prepare for war. She refused. Riding out alone to meet them, she faced men who expected anger or weakness. Instead, they found a woman who knew the land, the law, and the cost of bloodshed. She spoke of consequences, of alliances, of a future that did not require graves to be dug first. Her courage unsettled them more than weapons ever could. They left without firing a shot. That night, Jack realized something had shifted forever. Ayanna no longer needed saving. She was shaping the world around her, bending it towards something better, something just. As stars filled the sky, she sat beside him in silence, the desert wind moving gently through her hair. She belonged to two worlds, yet was owned by neither. And in that balance, she became something rare on the frontier, a bridge, a leader, and the living echo of a fearless Apache widow whose legacy refused to die.